Thank you so much. And then Jen's going to get the message off my face so, so I can see what I'm doing too. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Welcome to the community classroom. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm Amy Granite. I'm a Sculpey brand ambassador and Sculpey clay artist. And I'm very excited to be showing you our little coaster project that we're doing. I love home decor and functional items. So we're going to be using Premo Sculpey to make those coasters. And so when you're ready, let's turn our focus to the workstation and we'll get started. All right, here's the Sculpey Premo that we're going to be using. We're using 2 blocks of Sculpey Premo in gray granite. This is one of my favorite colors. As you can see here, it just has this wonderful organic look to it. It's real granity and peppery looking. We're also going to use a 1/4 block of black, which is what that is right there, and we're going to use half a package of white. So let me get this stuff out of my way and I'll show you what to do next. So taking a look at the gray granite that I have open, you can see that all of our brands, Sculpey 3, Souffle, Sculpey Premo, which is what this is, they're all divided into 4 sections. And that's just a really good way to know how much clay you're using. So when I said a 1/4 block of black, that's what that looks like, is one of those sticks. And then the white, it's a little bit harder to see on camera, but that's half a block of white. And so what we're going to make is these coasters, and we're going to sort of kind of marble those together to get these beautiful, very organic looking patterns, just like granite from the earth would have. So I'm going to set these out of my way and show you how to get started. So this project, unlike my other ones I did, I'm pretty much doing the whole thing start to finish without skipping any steps. So you're going to get to see me do a lot of marbling, a lot of, you know, mixing the colors from start to finish. So all I'm doing first is just really chopping up my colors. So I want 2 whole blocks of the Premo gray granite, and I want the gray granite to be my predominant color. That's why I'm using so much of it. And I'm using a clay blade to you know, chop it up into kind of random shapes, not real random, but kind of. And I keep turning my block just to get at it, you know, from different angles. So I've got actually 4 times as much gray granite as I'm going to have white and black. So first what I want to do is kind of spread these in a layer on the work surface in front of me. This is our silicone work and bake clay mat that I'm working on, and these are great because they don't react with oven bake clays. The plasticizer won't hurt them. They're made of silicone, so they can go right in the oven. So now I have this kind of spread out in sort of an even layer, but you can see there's a lot of holes going on in there, and that's fine. Sorry, I'm kind of off to the side, but next what I'm doing is slivering up the white. And then I'm just going to randomly position the white in some of those holes where I don't have as much gray granite. And this project is all about random. And random is really probably my favorite way to work. A lot of processes that you can do with oven baked clays, like cane making, might be super specific. But I find that in my career, I've always leaned more toward random. So there's our white. Now we have way less black. And the reason for that is because I just don't want the black to be the dominant color. So I'm using just much less. And I'm even chopping my black in really, really thin strips, a lot thinner than I did. Here, I'll show you. These are much thinner than I did the white and the gray because I want the black to kind of melt into the background, and I want to use the black like seasoning, like, you know, salt, to season the project but not overpower it. So just sprinkle your black bits there over the top. just keep chopping, chopping, chopping. I've got a lot of projects where I do a lot of chopping, and the full instructions to this project are even available on Sculpey.com, so that if you want to, you can print that out, or you can re-watch the video whenever you want to. I think it'll be available on Thursday after we're done here today. So
Amy, can people use their own colors? Like if someone like
yes,
purple or blue?
yes. So you can totally tailor this project to your own home decor. And so what you would want to take into consideration when you're choosing your own colors is what you want to be the dominant color. And that would be the one that you would use in place of the gray granite. So you'd use 2 blocks of, you know, your dominant color, and then half a block of your next dominant color, and then just a 1/4 block of the color that you want to be sort of your seasoning. Also, you could do this same project with either Sculpey 3 or Sculpey Soufflé. Any of those colored oven baked clays will work really well with this project. But to be quite honest, the reason I like to do it with Premo is because I love this gray granite, and I love the way it kind of meshes with other colors. And so that's why we went with the Premo, because we want to show off this gray granite. And we also used it in our earring tutorial a couple weeks ago, and we did it in the Mokumegane, the gray granite, and it looked really good. So what you saw me do there was I kind of used my acrylic roller, or my clay roller, to just really get all these pieces sticking to each other, and I'm using quite a bit of hand pressure. I'm actually flattening it at the same time. And these work and bake clay mats are great for picking up pieces and peeling them. This time I'm going to fold it in half, and I folded it in half so that the solid gray granite is all on the inside and my black and white are sticking out.
Amy, does the thickness matter?
Yes, the thickness is going to matter, but not yet.
Okay.
So for right now, we are going for the unmarbled effect. And I don't really care how thick it is right now, but I am working toward thinning it. Ultimately, our coaster, our finished coaster, is going to be 2 layers of this. So you can see this is the clay part, and then this is a cork backing that I put on just to make it super water resistant. And so this is 2 layers of clay, which are each about 1/8 of an inch thick. So I'm ultimately heading toward 1/8 of an inch. Now the clay on the silicone mat, it likes to stick to the silicone. That's why each time I'm moving it, I'm peeling it up. So that way it has the ability to stretch a lot. It's kind of like rolling out cookie dough, you know how or pizza dough, you might pick it up from time to time and move it around on your work surface so that it can stretch more. All right, time to fold it in half again. And time to roll again. But you can see a lot of those holes that I had initially from just sprinkling the clays on my work surface, those are all starting to fill in. What? Somebody said something. So here I'm just gonna, I had kind of a big tear there, and I just healed it up with my hands, with some hand pressure.
Ay, se me fue la cojudez. Ay.
So I'm rolling and rolling and rolling, and now the clay is starting to get really soft and it's moving a lot faster, and that makes me very happy. But as I'm rolling, you can see that the black and the white are really starting to thin, and that's what I want, because I want that gray granite to show through those thin layers of black and those thin layers of white, and it just starts distributing the pepper that's in that. I call it pepper. I don't really know what it is, but the flecks in the gray granite are starting to come through the other colors.
Amy, while you're rolling,
Mm-hmm.
maybe can we talk a little bit about baking?
Sure. Yes.
Like, if you have any tips or?
Yes. So oven bake clay needs to be baked, and oven baked clay will stay soft and flexible wherever you're using it until it's cured in a home oven at 275 is the general temperature for most of our brands of clay. And it will stay soft and flexible until you bake it. And one of the great things about oven baked clay is that you don't need a special oven. You can use a kitchen oven, or if you really do a lot of clay projects in your home, you might want to have a dedicated craft oven. And that's what I have in my studio. I have a Hamilton Beach little tabletop oven that I bake in almost every day. And I keep a oven thermometer inside so that I always know that I'm baking at the appropriate temperature. And I always keep a timer so that I know I'm baking at the appropriate time, because oven baked clays, or polymer clays as we have called them in the past, they react chemically at 275, and that's what makes them permanently hard. And you want to get just the best outcome that you can possibly have when you're working on your projects. So that's where it's critical to be, you know, really careful about time and temperature, because the right time and the right temperature will always yield your best and strongest product when you're done. Okay, so what I have right now, I want to just kind of review. This area here is really, like, a lot of the white is showing through, and it's really helping that the grit in that gray granite kind of break apart and become even more visible. And then over here in the black areas, we have not as much of that visible. And these are going to come out differently every single time you do it. So for example, these are the two I made a month ago to sample out for this project. And then this one I made just today to have another sample to show you. And they just come out so different. Even the marbling patterns are just so natural, and they're not something that you really want to control. You just want them to be really pretty. So what I'm going to do right now is, these coasters each require a base and a top. So while my clay is a little less marbly, I'm going to cut out my two bases, and then we'll rework it and cut out two tops. Because the bases don't need to be, ultimately the base isn't going to show, because it's going to be sandwiched between our top layer and our cork layer. So at this point I can cut out two bases. Now I'm at about probably a little bit thicker than 1/8 of an inch. But I want to go ahead and cut out my two bases. Now this template that I'm using, I'll show you how I did that. I just simply went online and found, this is called enchantedlearning.com, and I just found like free printable shapes. And so I printed this out, and then I used my printer at home to adjust the size of the hexagon so that it's around 4 inches from point to point. But the internet is just so handy for things like that, for helping you generate, you know, tools and templates that you need. And so that's what I did to get this hexagon shape. And then it's just super easy to cut out around my template with my blade. And I can do that for my base and for my top layer and even for the cork layer. So I'll set that one aside. There's going to be one of my nice bases right there. And then I'm going to just scooch over and cut another one. There. I'll just line that back up. So this amount of clay that I have specifically designed this project for makes two really nice thick coasters. You could really, if you're going to put the cork backing on them, you could probably get four coasters out, because They really don't need to be that thick. But I just made mine kind of nice and chunky because that's the style that I like. But you certainly wouldn't have to. These could be thick enough that when they're baked and you put like a cork backing or a felt backing on them, those would be plenty thick.
Hey, Amy,
for
do people use
coasters.
cookie cutters?
Yes, of course. Cookie cutters are a fantastic resource. And when I'm going to garage sales or thrift stores, when I find, you know, an interesting looking cutter, I'll go ahead and collect those for my studio at home, because you know, the more cutters you have at your fingertips, you know, those are just fantastic resources. So, all right, so what I did was I took all those scraps and kind of rebundled them, and now I'm rolling them again. And this is going to yield, because those were scraps and they were cut apart and reassembled, this is going to really give us more marbling. Which will be very, very pretty for a natural look. So the more you fold it, the more out of control, you know, your marbling gets, and I like that. Also, I think the more you fold it, and maybe don't even fold it in half, but fold it kind of off to the side like I just did, it also gives you these veins, these weird, you know, uneven veins that are running through. And, you know, natural stone will have veins in it like that. So I think this method of doing this just makes a really neat looking granite. Okay, so I'm really liking this. What I'm going to do next is just line up. I'm trying to keep everything about the same thickness, even though this is a base piece and this is the top. If I keep them all the same thickness, I know I've got enough clay to end up with two nice thick coasters. So that's going to be my, what do I do with my hexagon? There it is. That's going to be my top layer. So what I want to do this time is really think about the areas of this that I like the most, because these are the ones that are going to show. And I'm just really making sure I have enough clay rolled out here to do this twice. Not quite enough, so I'm just going to go a little bit thinner. I want to get two really nice tops out. I might even flip this over and look at the back, make sure which side I like the best. I really love this area right over here. It's so really, really natural looking. So now I'm going to cut again. A lot of the tutorials that I write have a mixing of colors, but I usually like to stop before it's completely mixed. I just love the really sort of organic look. I'm just going to stretch this a little bit more, because you don't want to watch me roll that again.
Amy, could you use a silicone rolling pin?
Yes.
Instead of acrylic? Yeah,
silicone works well with all kinds of oven baked clays. Silicone is a very useful tool for, there's lots of silicone molds, silicone rollers, all kinds of silicone kitchen gadgets that work great with oven baked clays. So thank you for that really good question. Okay, so now what we have is two tops, which have a little bit more pattern in them, and then two bases. So let's see how I could even use either one of these, because this one has a little bit more excitement to it. I'm going to set my tops and bases aside for right now, and I want to show you what you do next to get that gold leaf area. So I want to have a piece that's just a little bit bigger than any of these scraps. So I think in my tutorial I said a piece about 2 inches by 3 inches is what we need. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to apply some gold leaf to that. And that's how we got these super shiny areas. And I love this finished piece the way we've got this really organic background, and then we've got these very stark golden shards shooting through it. And I really like the way that turned out. Now, a lot of times when you put gold leaf on the top of polymer clay or oven baked clay, the gold leaf will tend to crackle. And I didn't want it to crack so much that the base clay showed through. So what I did was I used gold acrylic paint as sort of an adhesive between my gold leaf and my clay. So this is a Craft Smart, it's radiant gold. It's the same gold I used last week on the picture frame that we did. And if you didn't see that, I think you can watch it on michaels.com. On their website, I used this same gold color to highlight that finished frame. Okay, so I'm just spreading that out thin. And you can put acrylic paint on top of oven baked clay and it will be just fine, provided the acrylic paint is completely dry by the time you go to the oven. Acrylic paint is water-based and it can bubble in the oven if it doesn't go in dry. So this project's going to take plenty of time that gold paint would dry on there. I have no worries that it would be fine. But if you insert acrylic paint in your oven and it's not completely dry, you might get some bubbling. This is gold composite leaf, and composite means that it is not real gold. It's made out of some base metals and then has some sort of gold tint to it. And actually composite leaf works best with oven baked clays. I've got it stuck on my finger. Okay, so what I want to do is just position some gold leaf on top of my gold paint and then burnish it down with my finger. And I ripped it a little bit there because what I should have done was let the gold paint dry completely, because that gold paint, even when it's dry, it creates a tack on the surface of the clay. So if you have a situation like this where it's torn, you could just take some other bits of the gold leaf and put those on top. But also just know that that's why I backed it with gold paint, so that if there are tears in the gold leaf, when you see through that area, you're actually looking at the gold paint and it tends to make it look more solid. Okay, so that is how you apply gold composite leaf. And composite leaf comes in silver and copper. It even comes in a variegated color, which is a lot of different metal finishes mixed together. And so if you're designing your own coasters for your own home decor, it might be nice to throw in a silver composite or a copper or a different color than the gold. So that's how you apply the gold leaf. I have a piece here that has been sitting for just a little while, and so I know that the paint underneath is completely dry and ready to go. So I'm going to pull it in front of me so that you don't have to wait for paint to dry. I guarantee a video that doesn't wait for paint to dry. Okay, so first what I want to do is take one of my pretty tops, and I'm going to put, this is a top one that I'm going to put in front of me, and then I'm going to put a base one right here accessible. Now, if I forgot to mention it, let's back up a second, because I wanted to make sure that the piece with the gold leaf is approximately or very, very, very close to the same thickness as my top pretty piece. And these are really close. If you chose to use a pasta machine when you're doing oven baked clays, pasta machines are a great way to regulate the thickness of things. Other than that, if you're using an acrylic roller like I did today, practice, practice, practice helps you roll sheets that are very even. So what I'm doing now is cutting off some pieces that are mostly triangular. However, I want them to be varying amounts of width and varying angles, because I think that's what makes it look really cool. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this and cutting through my gold leaf, cutting right through the leaf with the blade, and then cutting right through the clay too. So I'll just cut several of these in different shapes, but mostly, you know, triangular is what I'm going for. And then we're going to practice a layout of how we want this finished top to look. So from here, I'll just take my little triangles and just position them here. And sometimes there's a neat vein going that way, so I just thought it'd be fun to position this triangle across that vein, and then I'm going to position this one here. Now, there's no real lining up to it. You don't have to make sure that they're all going the same way. In fact, I try to get them going different ways because I like that, again, I like that more random look. Here I'm letting that raggedy edge hang off the edge because it's not going to be part of the design. And so I like that. What's not to like about that? So what I would do next is I would start cutting this up with my blade, and I'm going to make sure my blade is really clean and I don't have any more paint or gold composite leaf debris on the edge, on my cutting edge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this up and reassemble it here on my base. So I'll just start here on this piece that's closest to me. I'm going to cut right exactly along the edge of that gold piece. Then I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to go over here and reapply it to the exact same place on the base. Okay, and we'll just start building our design over here. Next, I cut exactly on each side of the gold leaf, but this time, instead of putting the marbled piece, I lift the gold leaf and put it in place instead of it. Now this piece is scrap. I just get that out of my way. And then I'm going to come up here and cut exactly along the edge of this gold piece. And make sure your blade is going straight up and down so that your cuts match. And then I'll slide this over here and reposition it here. And then I'll line up my blade again on the other side of the gold and cut straight up and down. And then this time I put the gold piece in. And you can see as I'm reassembling this, it looks really nice the more even in thickness these gold and marbled pieces are, because it just reunites the whole like sort of puzzle that we have going here together. Okay, so that piece goes there. And then one more on the other side of the gold, pick up the gold and put it in place. Oh, there's one of my white hairs. That's not part of it. Put this in place.
So Amy, what if someone doesn't have gold leaf? Can they use paint after, or?
Yeah, or you could use paint before. Okay. Because remember how this piece, remember how we painted it to hold the gold composite leaf down? Well, what you could do is you could apply paint to a piece of the sheeted oven-baked clay. You could apply several layers so that your paint is really strong and really vibrant and opaque. Let that dry, then don't apply the gold composite leaf, just use the painted clay. I think if you went back in and tried to paint these areas, that might be a little more difficult to keep it neat, but you certainly could do that. All right, now a very handy tool that I have, this is just a Deli Sheet, which is a lot like wax paper, but without the wax. It's just kind of a little stiff, very, very thin paper, and I use this a lot to burnish layers of clay into a flat, even surface. But first I want to address, there's a little crack right here where my triangles didn't completely line up. So I'm just going to use finger pressure to make that little crack disappear. Okay. All right, now I'll put a piece of deli paper down, and like I said, you could do this with parchment or with wax paper. If you use wax paper, you would want to put down the side that's less waxy. Yeah, and the reason this works so well is because this paper is really hard to wrinkle, and you can kind of see through it. You can always also use copier paper, which doesn't wrinkle too easily in a flat aspect like this, but you can't see through copy paper. So all I'm doing is burnishing these level, because it's that level look that's going to make it look, you know, super cool. All right, now what I want to do is flip this over, or I could either address this from the top and recut it with my hexagon shape, or I can just flip it over, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip it and I'm going to lay it down on the deli sheet again. And what I want to do is just trim. I don't know if you can see, let me turn it, maybe you can see better this way. There's some unevenness where the front stretched because of all the pressure I put on it. The front stretched when I was rebuilding it. And I really want these to have a super neat and organized look when I'm all done. So I'm going to trim away the edges that actually stretched during the process of building it.
Hey, Amy, can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about cleaning your oven after you do polymer clay projects?
Okay, so that's a great question, but I have to speak as honestly and candidly with you. In my 30 years of experience with oven baked clay, I don't worry about cleaning my oven. Now, my craft oven that gets clay baked in it almost every single day, you know, that is one thing. It's dedicated to baking oven baked clay, and I don't clean it out. Now, if I get liquids, I also have another oven. I forgot, true confessions. I have 2 craft ovens and 1 kitchen oven. So tell me what my priority is there. Sorry about that. But I have 1 oven for solid polymer and 1 oven for liquid polymer. And that's because they operate at different temperatures. So I have a hotter setting, you know, dialed in for my liquid clay, because I like to bake my liquid clay on the hot side of the directions. And my solid clays, I bake right on target with the directions. So anyway, in the liquid oven, from time to time, there is a little waxy or greasy residue in that oven, which is very natural. It's not toxic or anything. There's nothing wrong with it. But over time, let's say 30 years, I've been doing this, there can be a little off-gassing of the liquid clay. And so I'll just wipe that out with a paper towel. Now, when I go in my kitchen oven, because if I have a super big project that goes in the kitchen oven, what I'll do in there instead is, instead of worrying about cleaning my kitchen oven, Raina, can we switch to my face for a second? So in my kitchen oven, what I'll do is, even if it's a big project, I'll invest in those metal, they're like really thin aluminum foil pans. I have a few of those dedicated. Then I use those for like a tent over my big project. Or some people use aluminum foil and physically make a tent over their project. And that will catch and trap, like over time, if you had a lot of baking in your kitchen oven, that could actually catch and make a Dutch oven for your project, which would catch any residual off-gassing or anything like that. And so then you don't have to worry about cleaning your kitchen oven at all. It would just be, you would just use that tent that you have dedicated for your craft projects, you know, for tinting. Now, polymer clay is non-toxic. You don't want to burn it because then it will smell funky. And nobody needs a funky smell of, I certainly don't need any funky smells influencing my cooking. So I'm sure you don't either, but it is non-toxic, and it's all, Sculpey Polyform has jumped through all the hoops necessary to make that non-toxic for use. All right, Raina, let's go back to my hands. And while we're talking, I'll just finish up this other coaster and keep the questions coming. I'm just wanting to make sure I've got, ooh, that one's really marbly, but I think that's too much marble. And since I'm a girl, I reserve the right to change which one's the base and which one's the, I know I said this one was the base, but now I'm shifting gears. I want to make sure my gold is about that same thickness. So I'm going to shift gears here and make this one my top, because I can do that if I want to. So I'm just going to position these however I think I might want them, and then go again. Maybe that's a little too, well, I like that white blotch there. I want to preserve that. So I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to make this one a little bit more of a wonky angle.
Hey, Amy,
yeah.
could you talk a little bit about how the clay does not dry out?
Yes. So oven bake clays, like Jen said, they don't dry out. They need heat to activate them and to make them permanent. So as long as you store your clay in an atmosphere that is cool, and when I say cool, you want to be under 90 degrees, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, but my studio is actually downstairs in my home, so it's naturally cooler there. And it's fine in my basement studio. I don't have to worry about it there. You just want to keep it covered from, like, if you have pets in your house, you want to make sure dander and dog hair, cat hair is not, you know, intermingling with your clay. So, Jen, what was the question?
Will the clay dry out?
Oh, will the clay dry out?
Keep your scraps
So,
around and
yeah,
reuse?
right. So my scraps, I kind of try to organize them by brand and by color. And by brand, I mean like Sculpey 3 or Souffle or Premo, because once I've taken the wrapper off, I mean, I'm good. I can tell you the colors of most things, even without the wrapper. But if I'm, you know, in a hurry and I can't tell white Souffle from white Sculpey 3 or something like that, then I do have them kind of separated by brand and then also by color. And the reason, my motivation behind storing them by color is that then when I want to mix up, you know, partially blended bits like this and make a marble, they look good together. Okay, so anyway, the question was, will it dry out? And it will not dry out. You just need to keep it clean and secure from dust and debris until you've got it completely ready to go in the oven. And that is just a huge bonus about oven baked clay, is that you can work it and work it and work it over time, and you can keep adding to it, and it won't dry out until you're ready to make it permanent. Now, I did mention that you want to keep it cool. So oven baked clays, they do their thing really well at 275 degrees Fahrenheit or 130 Celsius. But they can be starting that process more like down around 90. Is that accurate, Jen? Around 90 degrees, they are going to start that chemical process of changing into from a soft to a solid. And so that's why my downstairs studio is so perfect, because it never, you know, really gets above 75 degrees down there. So it's the perfect temperature. All right, something I didn't mention before because I was blabbing was that when I have cut edges like this, I always go back and burnish them with my fingertips, because I just think that makes the difference between the look of cookie cutter and the look of finished art. So that's why you see me doing a lot of that nibbly dibbly stuff with my fingertips, because I'm actually trying to make sure that my edges are just super, super nice, especially followed by a blade or even by a metal cutter like a cookie cutter. I always take my time and go back and just break that, even microscopically, just break that cut edge away with my fingertips. And it just changes the whole feel of your finished piece. And I do it top and bottom. And I should be laying my beautiful piece down, you know, on one of these deli sheets. Just see how easily that turns in my work surface. And it's just so easy to guide, and with this paper between it and the silicone. So I wish Sculpey manufactured these because they are such a great tool. but they're easily acquired in big boxes full at like a big club store.
Hey, Amy, if someone didn't have Premo clay, could they use a different brand of clay?
For this project,
Mhm.
yes, of course. This project, because I went to the trouble to go ahead and back it with these cork backings after baking, this is super strong. And all of our oven baked clays, whether it be Premo or Souffle or Sculpey 3, they're all water resistant. So they make good coasters. And the double layer plus the backing makes it just really strong. Okay, so now these are ready to go in the oven, and these would go, this is Premo, so it would go in the oven at 275 Fahrenheit for 30 minutes so that they'd be perfectly strong. Okay, after that comes out of the oven, like this one, I've already baked, and you can just see it's really strong and stiff. Probably should, man, that's pretty too. I wish I wasn't covering that up. Now, you don't have to put cork on these. For coasters, you do not have to do that. The clay itself is waterproof. This is a fine coaster just as it is. Or if your back's not all that pretty, you could even put like a piece of color coordinating felt on the back. The reason I do the coaster, the back, the cork back or the felt back, is to protect the composite leaf. And I have another step I do to protect the leaf. But the leaf is, even though it's not real gold, it is actually metal. And so I want to protect that because I want these to last a super duper long time. So that's why I go to the trouble to put a cork backing on them, because I think it looks really good and makes it super useful. So this is a sheet of cork that we got at Michael's, and I think they use them for like creating your own bulletin board is what they're for. And so all you got to do is take your template and cut this out. And this one's pretty thick. You could get a thinner cork as well. I went with this one because it's already flat, and cork is also available in rolls, but I was afraid that it wouldn't lay down really flat as it was drying. So I went with the piece that's already flat.
Amy, how important is it to bake at 275? If someone wanted to bake it hotter or less, are they able to?
Okay, here's the deal on the temperature. The Premo is designed to do its chemical thing at 275. And so that is the manufacturer's suggested temperature. And so that's where we should be baking, because that will give us the strongest product. Now, there's lots and lots and lots of clay artists who are baking at a hotter temperature, but they've been at it a while, and they've certainly experimented, and they've mad scienced this thing to bake at a temperature that they are comfortable with, and for different reasons. So if you are a beginner, it's really important to abide by the manufacturer's specifications so that you get the best possible outcome, you know, from the start. And then if you want to venture on down that road and just, you know, do your years of experimentation and come up with a different baking method that you've proven tried and true, then that's awesome too. But always start at the time and temperature that is provided on the label. And I'll show you on the label, it would be right up here under the color name. So get yourself magnifying glass, go, or the website, Sculpey.com, is super informative. They've got baking time and temperatures and baking and handling tips for every brand of clay right on the website. So you don't have to be in the dark about that. The answers are all right there. Okay, I've got my little cork piece completely matching. And so I'm going to use some E6000, which I evidently have glued shut from the last time. Oh, Jen. So while she's getting me a different glue, I'm going to talk a little bit about glazing these composite gold leaf areas, because that is the extra step I like to go to make absolutely sure. Oh, my paintbrush is on the floor. Well, for our last class, this is just like the best one. We've got all kinds of troubleshooting going on here in the studio, but that's what it's all about, right? Okay, how did I have that? Because it did match perfectly. Oh, I bet it was this way. Okay, there it is. Thank you, Jen. Okay, so E6000 is a silicone glue, and it works super well. And this is E6000 Plus, which I really like too. Either one is good. It's also, I think, the same company packages it as the name Goop. That stuff works really well too. Silicone glues work really well on non-porous surfaces, which is what oven baked polymer is. It's a non-porous, or maybe, you know, super close to non-porous. So now we've got, my glue is stuck. Boy, I'm glad this isn't a glue commercial. So silicone glue has trapped itself back in there. Just on an aside, when I was first starting, I tried a lot of different types of hot glue because hot glue is just so easy to use, but it really doesn't bond well with oven baked clay. So, okay, I should have opened that before the camera rolled. Okay, we're going to pretend that there's silicone glue on there, and then you just want to, you know, position your cork in place and probably put like a nice weight on that to hold it down flat. Now, the clay is going to want to stay flat as the glue dries, but maybe the cork will want to bend. So I would put something heavy and flat on that while it's drying. Okay, this is Sculpey Gloss Glaze. And I spoke briefly about using something to help protect the gold composite leaf because like I said, we are making coasters which actually invite wet drinks to sit on them. And so I want this to, you know, last for a long time. I want it to be beautiful every day as it was today. And if I decide to give it to someone for a gift, I want to be proud of what I made. And so I am going the extra step to seal just the gold composite areas with Sculpey Gloss Glaze, and that will help make the gold composite leaf waterproof and last a really long time. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm just applying it. Sculpey Gloss Glaze is it's water-based, so it's sort of like an acrylic in that it dries really nice and flat and plasticky, but then it is soap and water cleanup. So it's super easy to use.
Can you bake it after
you can, if you wanted to, you can even bake Sculpey Gloss Glaze once it's dry, just like you do acrylic paint when using it with oven baked clays. You can put that in the oven as well, but you want to make sure it's dry so that it won't bubble. Okay, so that is the coaster project. Here's the one we made today, and here's the ones we made earlier, and then, oh no, here's the two we made today. So look at how yummy that looks, all those beautiful marbling and granite and stone looks with that flash of gold going through there, and I am super happy about that. Do we have any more questions?
Yes, can you use resin to top it, to put on top?
Yes, you sure can. So how about we'll switch to my face for a while since I'm done with the project. I would like to talk to you one-to-one. So yes, resin works well over oven baked clay. So especially like a clear shiny resin would look nice. Your challenge might be, you know, just mixing up your resin thick enough that it won't run off the edges. But resin is a really nice counterpart or companion to oven baked clays, and there's a lot of artists online that are covering their finished oven baked clay pieces with resin, and it's a very nice look.
Will the cork catch fire in the oven?
I don't think so. Now in this project I didn't put my cork in the oven. I glued it on later, but I think that cork will not catch fire because we're only baking at 275 Fahrenheit, and cork needs a temperature a lot higher than that, probably somewhere in the realm of paper, which would be like over 400 degrees. So as long as you're monitoring your oven temperature and you are monitoring your oven time, cork can go in the oven. So can paper, cardboard, wood, like the frame we made last week. That was a wood frame that we put right in the oven. Glass, metal. Also, oven baked clays don't stretch or shrink. Whatever size you put it in your oven, that's the size it's coming out. So it's real easy to navigate, like for example, the frame we made last week, clay over wood. It doesn't shrink, it doesn't expand. So it's mounts right to the wood, and then when it comes out, it's completely finished.
Does it help to sand the back of the clay before you put the cork on?
Yeah, you could spend some time sanding it just to rough up the surface a bit. That might give you even better, a little bit of rough surface to rough surface, adhesion. I didn't do that, and mine have held up just fine, but you certainly could.
And then what kind of weight do you put on when you said you kind of
just like a heavy book. Okay. Yeah, just like a heavy book. Or I even have these little clamps that I got at a hardware store that I sometimes use to hold layers together while they dry. But if I'm using those little clamps, I always protect my clay surface with like a thick blotter of paper towel, or something to keep the grippy clamp from actually marking the clay. Yeah.
And then we had another, I think someone must have missed your oven cleaning recommendation.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you could maybe go through that one more time.
Yeah, so oven cleaning for liquid Sculpey, because I have one oven that I only put liquid Sculpey in, because I'm too much of a baby to just constantly adjust that temperature, I like to bake my liquid Sculpey at 300, and so it gives off a little bit of an off-gassing, and it kind of gets a little greasy or waxy film on the inside. I just take a paper towel and just wipe it out when I see that. I don't do it every time. I only do it when I see it. And in my kitchen oven, if I have a big project I put in the kitchen oven, I tint that with either aluminum foil tent, T-E-N-T, a tent, or one of those inexpensive, it's like aluminum foil, but it's a pan. I sometimes make a tent out of those, and then that way any residual off-gassing is caught up in that inside the tent. Yeah, so that's my cleaning tips for the oven.
So someone that took an earlier class from you.
Yay, an earlier class.
We talked about a ceramic tile, and she wants to know if there's any recommendation as the type of tile to use.
No, there's any ceramic tile will work inside their oven as a baking pan. You might if you're putting a cold, a ceramic tile that's just like room temperature, you're putting your clay project on there and you're putting it in the oven. So let's say everything you're putting in the oven is room temperature and you're putting it in a preheated oven. You might want to up your baking time by about 5 minutes, just to allow for the time that tile takes to actually absorb heat, so that your piece is actually getting the full benefit of the baking time, because a cold tile or even a room temperature tile is going to take a lot more time to heat up than, say, a thin baking pan. And generally in my studio, I just use metal baking pans. I use this silicone work and bake clay mat as a liner to my baking pan, just because sometimes I have drips of things like liquid Sculpey or paint or whatever I'm sticking in my oven. I'll get it on that silicone baking sheet instead of on my oven. So yeah.
Do you always have to take your project out when the timer goes off, or could you leave it in the oven for a little while?
If I'm baking Premo or souffle or even liquid Sculpey, I will bake longer, or I won't worry about getting it out of the oven right on time. I can leave it in there for longer. If you're working with some of our brands that are more geared toward children, let's say eraser clay, bake and bend. What is it still called?
Yep, bendy.
Bendy clay, eraser clay, even Sculpey 3. You'll notice on the packaging that those have, Sculpey 3 only bakes for 20 minutes instead of 30. And I'm really a lot more diligent about getting those projects out on time because they're a lot softer clays. They're a little bit less expensive clays too. They are not the professional grade that Premo and Soufflé are. So I don't want them to discolor, which baking too long in any of those children's type clays can maybe darken the colors, and you just don't want that. You want to really make sure that your finished project is as bright and vibrant as when you put it in there.
And I think someone missed your comment about the ceramic tile. She wants to know what the purpose of the ceramic tile is.
Okay, well, some people use ceramic tiles as baking sheets. I typically don't. I usually just use a baking sheet. But sometimes when people are working in big groups, like say a retreat, they need smaller baking pans, baking tiles. They'll use small baking tiles because they're small, they're strong. You can just put one small project in the middle of a tile and stick it in the oven with a lot of other people's projects, and then you know that one's yours. It's even okay. You can like if you're a teacher and you've got a big classroom of people, you can bake on index cards. That's what this is. You can write your student's name on there and put that in the oven as your baking sheet. And it will not burn because it doesn't get up over the ignition point of paper. So there's all kinds of things that you can use for baking surfaces. You just need to tailor it to your specific situation, whether you're the only one baking at home in your own oven, or if you're in a retreat setting or with other crafters, or, oh, that'll be such a joy to be back together with all our crafting friends in one room, crafting together. Let's dream of that day. So anyway, I'm just saying that moving forward down the road when we all get back together again, you can use index cards, you can use smaller tiles, whatever you need to.
Do you have to use something, or you just put it on the...
No, I would use something because oven baked clay gets a little softer before it starts getting its maximum hardness. So if you're just going to set it on the oven rack, it's definitely, and your oven rack is preheated, it's definitely going to want to take the shape of your oven rack. And my oven rack is just wires, so the clay would probably just bend and fall through. So no, you need to use something to keep it nice and flat and not take on the shape of the rack.
Okay, thank you.
Use something. So good questions. How much time do we have, Jen?
2 minutes. So.
2 minutes. All right, so let me say my spiel, and then if there's time for one more question, we'll do it. But I need to say thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us. We would love to see what you're making. If you're making things and posting it to social media, please use the hashtag Sculpey, and please use the hashtag Make It With Michaels. And then that way we can find out what you've been making, because you inspire us much more probably even than we are inspiring you. And so we want to see what you're making, and we want to see what you're doing with Sculpey clay and with all the different projects that you're doing out there. So be sure and add the hashtag. And I'm sorry, this is my last class with the Zoom situation. We've enjoyed 4 together, and I appreciate those of you who have joined us for more than one. So that's all I've got. I don't know if we have time for one more question or if we're peace out.
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you so much.